welcome to the 8 Steps of Vocal Development webinar. I want to thank Dean Kalin for inviting me to do this webinar, and it just made me get my act together and do something that I've been meaning to do for a long time. Just to let you know, it's a lot of information, and I won't have time to really take questions, but you can type questions into the Q&A, and I am willing to stay at the end and just answer all questions. The webinar will be recorded, so you will be able to access it later. We probably will go over time, probably go over an hour. It's going to take that long to, present everything, but feel free to just log off and go do your thing, because we'll record the whole thing and you can come back and access it anytime you want to. It's just, there's a lot of information. But welcome, 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 everybody. It's so good to have you here, and let's just get started. So a little bit about me. I've had over 40 years now, can't believe it's been that long, of professional singing, teaching, and research. And I seem to remember Dean Kalin being my accompanist when I worked with Seth in LA. That's how long ago that was. I started my music career as a professional singer in Los Angeles in the 80s. I did all kinds of bands, cover bands, rock bands, R&B bands, recorded songs, just did a lot of singing. I'm going to move this guy over here. Okay. I have a bachelor's and a master's degrees in vocal performance, which was a nice adjunct to the real world experience of being in the trenches singing rock and roll. I had 15 years or more with speech level singing, SLS, achieved the highest level of certification there, which was level 5. I wrote the SLS Teacher's Training Manual. Yes, it was me. It was me. Yes, that was used to train SLS teachers around the world. Currently on the board of IVTOM, International Voice Teachers of Mix, and we are on the cutting edge of vocal science. Yes, we are. Through my career, I became determined as a teacher to find an approach based on truth rather than an opinion. So for many years, I've been on a quest for science-based information about the function of the singing voice and the most effective methods of teaching contemporary singers. That journey resulted in the vitally important information that you will be learning here. I used my years of professional performing experience combined with vocal training from the best in the business to develop a vocal method that embraces the requirements of contemporary music while encouraging and maintaining vocal health. Many traditional teaching methods, though they encourage healthy singing habits, are not necessarily designed to develop the edge, power, and pop timbre that the contemporary singer needs. And here's a few little shots of me in the 80s. Many bands, many hairstyles there. All right. So at this point, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I own Sing Like a Star Studios. We have 2 locations. I have 5 associate teachers working for me, and they're all trained with the Sing Like a Star method. So they all learn the 8 steps of vocal development and teach the students with this method. I moved here in 2001 and opened Sing Like a Star Studios. By 2013, I was teaching 7 days a week, so I decided to train SLAS associate teachers to teach my method. 2014, I wrote a book called You Can Sing Like a Star, which includes the vocal science and a teacher training manual. And I began the process, which is still going on, of recording many hundreds of MP3 instrumental tracks for the teachers to use in teaching voice lessons. That's been the slowest part of the process. Here's the covers to the 2 books. Here's just a few examples of students that I've trained with the 8 steps of vocal development. Angelica Hale, who a lot of people have been following. This is her when she got the buzzer. Laura Suzanne Wright on American Idol. Christina Pasqualone, she was on American Idol. I know she actually did work with probably more than one mixed teacher in our group. So yeah. And another student of mine that's done very well is Jennifer Geller, who's on Broadway now.
'Cause you are the piece of me I wish I didn't need, chasing relentlessly, still fight and I don't know why. If our love is tragedy, why are you my remedy? If our love's insanity, why are you my clarity? Don't waters too deep, and I'll fall right back to you. 'Cause you are the piece of me I wish I didn't need. Chasing relentlessly, still fight, I don't know why. If our love is tragedy, why are you my remedy? If our love's insanity, why are you my clarity? Why are you my clarity?
Said he's going back to find oh, to a simpler place and time. Oh, yes, he is. Till now, I've always got right on my own. I never really cared until I met you. And now it chooses me to go. Some people wonder when I'm not one of them. If it ain't you, baby, find out you, baby. Some people want diamond rings, some just want everything, but everything needs nothing. Mommy, you got lots of friends crowded round the door. Where's you gonna spend it? They don't come no. Rich relationship, break your brothers. You can help yourself, but don't take too much. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child who's got his own, who's got his own.
Another voice I could listen to all day, just fabulous singer. All right, why the 8-step system was developed. To train other teachers to teach at a level that has taken me a huge investment of time and money over 40 years to acquire and perfect. It was really developed to give beginning teachers, mostly my associates at this point, but hopefully others as well, a results guaranteed method that a master teacher would possess, but quickly. To that end, hundreds of instrumental tracks have been recorded for teachers to use in lessons. And the tracks are not just piano, but real music, and they're lots of fun. The students just love them. Same thing with contemporary singers that want a self-training method. Lots of tracks to practice with. They're fun. To provide an objective-based approach where goals are specific and measurable. Lastly, to gather and disseminate information on the science of vocal production and the exciting new discoveries in vocal science that have recently become available. So it's part exercises and it's part text and science. What the 8 steps of vocal development method is. Okay, it's based on the concept of sequential skill building. Each step develops the skills and coordination to be able to progress to the next step. When a singer can easily sing the exercises in one round, they're ready to move to the next round, which is exercises of a greater difficulty. Exercises are presented in order of difficulty. Round 1 exercises. So I have them broken down into round 1, round 2, and round 3. So round 1 exercises are the discovery process where the student experiences a new vocal coordination for the first time. Round 2 exercises are the reinforcement process, where we reinforce new skills. In other words, they're higher level skills. And round 3 exercises are the development process. These are the most difficult exercises, and this is where the student builds automatic good habits that lead to success. It's also a method whose primary objective is the development of balanced registration and mix. Our most important objective in steps 1 through 6 is the development of mixed and balanced registration, which will eliminate voice breaks and enable to sing in their chosen musical style, increasing power and vocal range without sacrificing vocal health. In step 7, we learn advanced skills, musical skills like dynamics, flexibility, power, stepwise motion, and eliminating the helpers used in earlier steps. Step 8 is style development. This method is a method that will build reliable vocal technique. The voice is a system with various elements that must work in a coordinated fashion. Our objective is to develop every component of the voice system so the voice will function effortlessly. This is called building technique. When good technique becomes a habit, the singer can begin to move into artistry and expressing emotion. Technique will only become habit as a result of consistent practice with focused attention, as opposed to warming up, where you're not paying much attention. The 8 steps of vocal development method is a method based on the spiral learning concept. In spiral learning, steps are constantly revisited. Each time, the voice will be functioning at a higher level if singers have practiced the exercises from the previous week with focused attention. You'll be amazed at how well and how quickly this process will work for you and your students if you simply follow the steps exactly as presented in the manual and keep cycling through the steps at higher and higher levels. And this is the spiral learning process, little chart here. So first round of exercises, they're in discovery. They're experiencing a new and better coordination. Second round of exercises, more difficult. They're reinforcing this new coordination with focused repetition. Round 3, the most difficult of the exercises in each step, the development of automatic good habits that leads to, ta-da, success. What the 8 steps of vocal development method is not. It's not a warm-up. It's vocal development based on acquiring specific skills. It's not a program for singers who will not practice exercises. To change current habits, singers must practice specific exercises with focused attention, with an objective or goal in mind. Singing songs is not practicing and is not effective for vocal development. Warming up is not vocalizing with a specific goal in mind and will contribute very little toward vocal development. Singing specific exercises in a specific order with focused attention is required for change to occur. It is not a program for classical or operatic singers. It's specifically for the contemporary singer of rock, R&B, country, jazz, gospel, pop, and musical theater. All right, the philosophy. It's based on the ideal of balance, balanced registration, balance of TA and CT muscle interaction, balance of breath pressure and vocal fold adduction, balance of bright and dark resonance, which we call chiaroscuro, and we also believe in a balance of hard work, technique and vocal development, and fun, singing songs, learning to riff and run, etc. in step 8. We use the tools of vowels, consonants, temporary sounds, and scales to create exercises that address the students' current vocal habits and create new and healthier habits. These exercises must be practiced daily for best results. Again, we base instruction on the spiral learning model, repeating concepts many times at higher and higher skill levels. And we just talked about that. All right, here's the 8 steps. Step 0 is the assessment and diagnosis step. So it's not a teaching step. It's where we do what we call a getting to know you. And this is what we do in step 0. We determine the student's vocal category as compared to the optimal balanced singer. First, we assess what is going on in the lower register. Some singers are too heavy in the lower register, and we call that unbalanced pulled lower. Some are too light in the lower register. We call that unbalanced light lower. They're unbalanced in their the lower and upper registers are unbalanced. And then the last category is undeveloped. This is the person that's just basically breathy all over the place. Then we talk about what happens in the upper register and what happens as the student transitions through the primo passaggio or the first bridge, and the current degree of balance between the registers. Step 1, we talk about breath management. As we lay the foundation of good singing, we also include posture stretching and appoggio techniques. Now, some people need this and some people don't need this. I mean, it's not a one size fits all. You have to adjust this to the needs of the student. In step 2, we activate and develop the lower register, focusing on the area of notes below the primo passaggio or first bridge. This is dominated by the TA or thyroarytenoid muscle. The objective is to sing with a modicum of projection and clarity rather than timidly, breathily, and weakly. We do an exercise called the easy call. Whoa! Just as if they're calling into the next room. In step 3, we activate and develop the upper register as we focus on the area above the primo passaggio or first bridge. This is dominated by the cricothyroid muscles, CT. The objective is to sing clearly with a modicum of projection rather than timidly, breathily, and weakly. Step 4, isolators. Now we're going to continue on with further development of lower TA dominant and upper CT dominant registers. This is done separately, still in step 4. We also toggle back and forth between lower and upper, which is a skill that really needs to be developed. One of the things I kind of noticed early on in my career is I felt like a lot of people were hitting, let's mix from the first minute, and it's like there really wasn't anything to mix because there wasn't much development of their lower register. So I think if we develop that lower and develop that upper, learn to go back and forth and give the student the feeling of what it's like to be kind of isolated in that. Not that it's ever really isolated, but dominant, then they have a better chance at creating a good mix. And that's what we do in step 5. Step 5 is register connection with temporary sounds. We connect the lower and upper registers. The student begins to mix. In this step, we make a distinction between the pulled lower category singers, the ones that take their chest voice too high, and the light lower and undeveloped category singers, which are usually your breathy people and your chorus ladies. Exercises and keys are specific to each category. The objective is to develop better balance between the registers and to develop this upper register mix, along with the ability to transition smoothly through the primo passaggio, the first bridge. So I think I was telling Dean earlier that step 5 is everything I ever learned in SLS, pretty much. Step 6 is we talk about onset. So onset is how phonation begins. And I felt that really needed attention because we want the student to move beyond the kind of approach that we use when we're giving them tools or assisting them to bring their chords together or whatever, and move on to the balanced onset, which is the healthiest onset. We don't want people to stay necessarily in the kind of onset that we're using in steps 2, 3, and 4, because sometimes we need to use tools and devices that, rather strongly bring the vocal folds together. So we want to move past that. And a balanced onset can be created with staccato. And we also include in step 6 advanced vibrato. We find that if a person can sing with vibrato, the voice is usually pretty balanced and released. So onset refers to the way phonation is initiated. Balanced onset is neither breathy, aspirate, nor hyperadducted, which is too hard, pressed. In step 7, the advanced skills, the objective is the development of musical skills such as dynamics, including mezza di voce, that's when you crescendo, decrescendo, flexibility, power, and the ability to sing melodies and scales in stepwise motion, eliminating consonants to improve legato. And of course, step 8 is everybody's favorite step. That's the style step. The singer has fun learning riffs and runs of today's music, along with the pentatonic and blues scales that contemporary riffs and runs are based on. They also learn how to add texture and stylistic devices to sound authentic, singing in any style, including theater, country, rock, R&B. The teachers can choose to include step 8 exercises at any point in the student's development, because most students would really like to riff and run sooner rather than later. All right. This is the 8 steps of vocal development. Here's our vocal categories chart. So we want to aim for the ideal of balanced registration. Lower register and upper register are equally strong. The person who is too heavy on the bottom, we call that unbalanced, pull lower. And the person who is too light on the bottom, chorus lady, unbalanced, light lower. And the person who's just breathy and weak all the way around, that's just an undeveloped singer. Tools for training voices. We have many tools that we use to train the voice. Some of them include the scales. The 5-tone ascending scale creates more hold when combined with open vowels. It exposes tendencies. It's used to diagnose and assess singers. It establishes the lower register coordination. A 5-tone descending scale, when used in the upper register, increases the ability to press into the bridge. When used in the lower register, it increases the ability to maintain adduction on lower pitches. The long scale, otherwise known as the 1.5, establishes lower register coordination, then releases into the upper register with connection. Good for register connection and balancing. The repeater scale develops the ability to press into the upper register. Repeater with sustain and repeater with sustain and vowel change. Increases the strength in the upper register, encourages vibrato, and develops ability to sing all vowels. Top-down scales finds released coordination in the upper register and then blends down. Top-down adducted finds connection in the upper register and then blends down with greater vocal fold adduction. Legato staccato exercises. They create balanced vocal fold adduction and register connection. The 1-5-3-8-5, which used to be called the broken arpeggio, register balancing and flexibility. Slides and sirens, great for register connections. Staccato, great for vocal fold adduction, balance between air and the vocal folds. Flexibility scales create the ability to sing fast melismas, runs, and licks in a song. Blues and pentatonic scales are used for all R&B runs and improvisation. Stepwise motion scales will create the ability to sing through the bridges in songs which require stepwise motion. Another tool that we have are our vowels. Closed front vowels such as E will provide release plus brilliancy. Closed back vowels such as oo provide release. Open front vowels such as a give us more mix and more hold. Central vowels such as and the schwa give us a balance and a better mix. French nasals also help us access our mix. German and French vowels made with the lips and the tongue, their combination vowels, are good for release. We also have consonants. Aspirate consonants such as H, S, F, and sh provide release and they increase airflow. The glide consonants such as W and Y and the liquid nasals M, N, and NY, ny, onion, they regulate airflow, the balance of air and vocal folds, registration balance, and mix. The voiced fricatives such as V, Z, J, and th regulate airflow, balance air, and the vocal folds. Plosives, P, K, T, stop air and then release it. They create better vocal fold adduction. Voiced stop consonants, G, B, D, J, like judge. They stop airflow, creating better vocal fold adduction and hold. The temporary sounds. The imposed larynx, the hooty, the dumb sounds help us transition from the lower to the upper by allowing CT muscles to take over. They counteract the tendency to hike the larynx. Pharyngeal sounds, also known as voce di strega, bratty, twang, they thin the vocal folds, encourage mix, and encourage vocal fold adduction. The creak, the vocal fry, or the creaky create easy vocal fold adduction, decrease strain, create balance between air and the vocal folds. The cry engages the body for better appoggio and vocal fold adduction. Semi-occluded phonations such as straw phonation, lip rolls, tongue trills create release and balance. The type of onset that we use can provide a certain result. If there's an it or an aspirate onset, such as huh, that gives us more release. If it's an adducted onset, eat, that gives us better vocal fold adduction. Appoggio and breath management are tools that provide a balance of airflow in a steady stream, just enough and not too much. We can think of vibrato as a tool, which indicates balanced vocal production, creating beauty and richness of tone. In the Tools for Training Voices chart, you always want to ask, is what I'm hearing too heavy or too light? Does it need more vocal fold adduction or less adduction? Does it need more hold or more release? The objective is to get into the mix by using tools that counteract incorrect tendencies. Gradually move from friendly vowels, consonants, and sounds toward those that are more challenging, always aiming for balanced registration and mix. And you see from left to right here, the tools that provide the most release, less vocal fold adduction, such as closed vowels, aspirate onset, etc. Mix in the middle, glide consonants, the the creak, the creaky door, the long scale, sirens and slides and staccato, all the way to the far right where we have open vowels, things that create more vocal fold adduction and hold, such as adducted onset, 5-tone in the lower register, voce di strega or witchy sounds, the tongue out. All of those will help us find a better vocal fold adduction. Step 0, assessment and diagnosis, the getting to know you introductory session. We call it the GTKY.
Hi, I'm Tricia Gray, founder of Sing Like a Star Studios and originator of the 8 Steps of Vocal Development method. We'll be starting with Step 0, the Getting to Know You introductory session. This step is called Step 0 because it's not a teaching step. When you come in for the Getting to Know You session, you'll be asked to sing a couple of scales. This helps us to diagnose your voice. My associate teacher, Heather, will be singing the scales and showing you what you can expect in your Getting to Know You session.
All right, the objectives of Step 0. At Sing Like a Star, Step 0, a non-teaching step, is a meeting with the student called a Getting to Know You, or GTKY. It's a half-hour session, prepaid, where the student and teacher meet. The student sings some simple scales and a song for assessment and diagnosis, and the student then decides whether or not to register for ongoing weekly lessons. The session is comprised of, first, the interview. The teacher takes the student's history, singing and vocal study, asks the student about their goals and style preferences. What do they really want to sing? What are their dreams? What do they feel they might want to improve about their voice? Then we have assess and diagnose. Assess and diagnose the singer's current vocal tendencies or habit. What is working and what is not? In the assessment, the student will sing 2 scales, a 5-tone ah and an octave ah, and the Star-Spangled Banner, which we prefer, or a song of your choice. Diagnosis is where the teacher assigns a vocal category based on their evaluation of the student's lower register, upper register, primo passaggio or first bridge, and register balance. First, we get to know you better. We want to know your goals. We're going to take your history and ask you about your goals, your preferences, your musical styles, if you've studied before. You'll sing an easy 5-tone scale, and your teacher will assess your voice.
Demo. You sing.
You'll repeat this scale in several ascending keys. Then we'll have you sing an octave scale.
Great. Now we're going to move to the octave scale. Your turn, Heather.
It's not an audition. This just helps us know how to help you better. Lastly, we'd like you to sing a song, the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, sing and oh, sing.
And we won't make Heather sing the whole song, but she did a great job on it. Explain, convince, and assure. Explain, the teacher explains to the student the purpose of the exercise they just performed and what they heard. Was the sound breathy, strained, flipped, etc.? What category they are in, and what they can expect from the training. Convince, the teacher might sing for the student or play some examples of students performing in our SLAS showcases. Hopefully, if they've spent some time on the website, they're already convinced. Assure, the teacher explains that we have a specific approach for each student based on their current challenges, and that with patience and practice, they can have the voice they want. Then the student will prepay for and schedule lessons. The student is given a written sheet that explains what their vocal category is and the objectives and goals their teacher will have in place for them. Diagnosis. Based on what is heard in the assessment, the teacher assigns the student's initial vocal category, which will determine the student's lesson plan. There are 3 basic categories: undeveloped, unbalanced, and balanced. A voice that is breathy and weak in both the lower and upper registers is undeveloped. This singer transitions through the first bridge too low, if they even bridge at all, since they often don't have much presence in the lower register. This singer often has a high larynx and a breathy tone quality. This category singer will need to increase energy, connection to the body, appoggio, and vocal fold deduction. A voice that is weightier in either the lower or the upper register is unbalanced. There are 2 types of unbalanced, the pulled lower or the light lower. The unbalanced pulled lower singer, the lower register is pushed too high with a strained, yelled vocal quality. The upper register is usually much weaker, often falsetto with a flip between the registers. The singer bridges too high. Men usually push up to G4 to A4 or higher with a very high larynx. Females and children push their chest voice up to D5 with a theater belt. This type needs to decrease air pressure, relax abdominal muscles, and sing with less volume in order to decrease strain in the area close to the first bridge. They will need better vocal fold deduction, however, in the upper register. Unbalanced light lower. The lower register is breathy and weak. The upper register is somewhat stronger, though classical sounding. This singer often bridges too low. The singer is typically a choral soprano who sings exclusively in the head voice and avoids the lower register. The female or child singer bridges too low or not at all due to lack of lower register presence or TA muscle engagement. A voice with the lower and upper registers equal in strength, flexibility, timbre, and tone quality is balanced. In a balanced voice, the transition through the first bridge is smooth and there's no breathiness or strain. Again, here's our vocal categories chart. We want the registers to be balanced between lower and upper, equally strong in both registers, and smoothly transitions between the lower and the upper register. The unbalanced pulled lower singer is too heavy in the lower register, transitions into the upper register too late, strains for higher pitches, and then flips into a falsetto. The unbalanced light lower singer is breathy on low notes, but may be more developed in the upper register, typically a female choral singer. Undeveloped singers, the lower and upper registers are equally anemic, thin, and breathy due to inefficient vocal fold adduction. Step 1, breath management and appoggio. The objectives of step 1, to encourage balance of air and muscle, relaxed inhalation and extended consistent exhalation, delaying the ascent of the diaphragm to its pre-inspiratory position with assistance from the intercostal muscles, lateral oblique muscles, and transversus abdominis muscles. Development of appropriate appoggio. Some singers need to increase, but others may need to decrease. Appoggio is an Italian term meaning to lean or support. We think of it as support. Breath management instruction must take the student's vocal category into account. Most beginning students, the undeveloped and unbalanced light lower category, will need to increase breath pressure to some degree. They sing too softly, breathily, and passively with no connection to the body. However, other singers, those in the unbalanced pulled lower category, usually overdo abdominal muscle engagement. These singers are usually athletic and energetic with forceful personalities. They will need to relax abdominal wall engagement and lower breath pressure by singing at a more moderate volume. It's all about balance. If air pressure and glottal closure are too high, that's called hyperadduction, the resulting sound is overdriven and raspy. If air pressure and vocal fold adduction are too low, that's called hypoadduction, the sound will be anemic and breathy. If the balance of air pressure and glottal closure are just right, the sound is clear and strong, but not forced. Every voice is different in terms of what strong sounds like. Children, of course, will not have the same volume as adults. Here's our balance of air and muscle chart. Air refers to breath pressure generated by the pulmonary system, which is the lungs and muscles of respiration. We control breath pressure during expiration by engaging the intercostal, lateral oblique, and transversus abdominis muscles to slow the rate of the return to the diaphragm to its pre-inspirational dome shape. In order to inhale, we must relax the abdominal muscles completely. Muscle. Muscle refers to the vocal folds, which are composed of mucous membrane, ligament, and muscle that vibrate and modulate airflow during phonation. The folds must meet at the midline to adduct at the onset of sound. The muscles of adduction include the intrinsic TA, LCA, and IA that shorten and adduct the folds, and the CT muscles that lengthen and stretch the folds. Well, the TA shortens and adducts, and the LCA and IA draw them together. Diaphragm, lungs, and rib cage during respiration. The bright green there is the diaphragm. So the diaphragm contracts or moves down when you inhale, and look how high the diaphragm is. Most people think their diaphragm is much lower. And then it relaxes and moves back up as air moves out of the lungs. We would like the singer to expand front, sides, and back. Its epigastrium, ribs, and back all expand in a 360-degree circle of expansion. These are the muscles of breath management, transversus abdominis, the obliques, and the intercostals. And we have created a breathing belt at Sing Like a Star that these singers wear that helps them remember exactly where to expand. We're just going to show you one of the appoggio exercises that we use here. This is the steam hiss exercise. Place your hands on your waist with your thumbs to the back, under your bottom ribs. Expand with the breath, pressing slightly outward and resisting for 4 beats. Then you're going to hiss loudly for 4. We're going to inhale for 4, suspend for 4, and then hiss out for 4. This exercise is known as ready, inhale, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Suspend. 2, 3, 4. Hiss out. 2, 3, 4. Step 2. Activate and develop the lower register. The objectives of Step 2. The student experiences TA, or thyroarytenoid muscle dominant lower register singing with appropriate vocal fold adduction, clarity, and projection. Singing at soft dynamics is a more challenging skill that we will cover in Step 7. In Step 2, activate and develop the lower register, or the lower notes of the range. Knowing the student's vocal category is vital. If they are in the unbalanced pulled lower category, you won't need to linger on this step because they have already discovered their lower register, perhaps too much so. Unbalanced pulled lower category singers should perform the step 2 exercises with a relaxed approach and less volume. Be sure you stay below the first bridge. Don't take these exercises too high. If the singer is the undeveloped or unbalanced light lower categories, you will need to work through all the exercises, including the adducted onset exercises. Category-based objectives. For unbalanced pull lower, the objective for unbalanced pull lower singer is to create an easily produced, free, clear, energized, and unforced tone in the lower register with a relaxed and slightly low larynx. The unbalanced pulled lower student might need to relax abdominal engagement and decrease volume. The other two categories, undeveloped and unbalanced light lower, the focus with this type is on more efficient vocal fold adduction and greater closed quotient. That's the amount of time the folds stay adducted in the cycle of open and closed. This breathy singer usually needs more energy and increased appoggio. Order of priorities, rounds 1 through 3. In round 1, that's our discovery round. The student sings with projection and clarity in the lower register using a slightly low and relaxed larynx with the easy call exercises. That's whoa! Some singers will need additional work on vocal fold adduction with the adducted onset exercises. Round 2, reinforce. We introduce the pulse vibrato for increased strength and balance. Some singers will need additional work on vocal fold adduction with the adducted onset exercises in round 2. Round 3, develop. This is advanced work in the new coordination. Further vibrato, ear training, and introduction of the creak and magic of M exercises for better balance. To perform these exercises correctly, the student should be singing with an energized and moderately projected vocal sound. We call that the easy call. A slightly low, relaxed larynx, free from extrinsic muscle tension. Adducted vocal folds for a clean, balanced onset. Undeveloped and unbalanced light lower category singers will need the adducted onset exercises. Here are the vocal folds. The vocal folds are closed when we swallow. Air causes the vocal folds to vibrate between open and closed positions when we talk or sing, and the vocal folds are open when we breathe quietly. Step 2 exercises. Now, the way these work is that you get a demonstration, and then the student sings, and then demo again, student sings again, and then you will sing them in many keys. In step 2, our goal is to develop the lower register, the area of notes under the first bridge. That would be A flat to B flat in women, or D flat to E flat in men. The TA, or thyroarytenoid muscle, is quite active in this area, just as it is in our speaking voice. When singing, the voice should be clear and strong, not breathy or weak. To begin, we use the easy call exercise. This is like calling into the next room. You want a nice, clear, but unforced sound. You see the round 1 exercises here are the gray ones. That's our discover exercises where we're experiencing a new coordination for the first time. All right, we'll start with the easy call exercise. Whoa! And we add on to that one with the easy call down. Whoa! Go, 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 go! And then the easy call down and up. Whoa! Go, 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 go! So we're using a slightly imposed larynx, a nice open feeling. And we want to make sure that we're using plenty of energy and projection. Notice that we start these exercises in the middle of the range and go down, rather than starting on a low note and trying to go up. You always want to start where the student is comfortable and then work down or up from there. These are lower register triads next. And then we have a pitch challenge exercise. Now, some students are kind of breathy. Okay, those are the undeveloped and the unbalanced light lower singers, and they will need additional help with the adduction exercises. That means adduction means to bring the vocal folds together, and we want to adduct the folds in order to make a clearer sound. So we might do something like this: speak it and sing it. And then we build the skill level here. Let's jump down here and we'll show you, let's do this one here. Adduct and down. Again, starting where the student is comfortable and then working your way down. Now, round 2 exercises are where we develop the skill that we have just experienced in the first round. We will strengthen the lower register further with a 5-tone strengthener exercise. Go, 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 go. Real punchy, almost staccato there. Again, the left side here is the basic exercises that everyone will use. This right column here are the adduction exercises that are only necessary if you have a very breathy singer. That would be our undeveloped or our unbalanced light lower person. Okay, if we did need some more adduction, that person might do something like this. That bright A vowel is very effective at getting the vocal folds to adduct. We want to introduce the semi-occluded exercise, which is our lip roll. This will become very important later. I have found that it's really nice to introduce this on a 5-tone scale before, trying to get the student to do it on a longer scale where they usually fall apart. So they're going to just basically learn the exercise here, learn how to do a nice lip roll. And we introduce vibrato in round 2. We begin vibrato work with the pulse vibrato, where we are deciding how many vibratos we're going to do and then executing that. So it sounds like this. All right, and then when we can do it slowly, we're going to speed it up. Step 3, activate and develop the upper register. Objectives of Step 3. The student first experiences singing in the upper register without strain, and then develops greater strength and power in the CT cricothyroid muscle dominant upper register singing. To begin the process of learning to sing higher pitches, the student must first experience singing high notes with release, that is, without straining. For the unbalanced pulled lower singer, this will be a new experience. Once this is achieved, we then work on increasing vocal fold adduction, closed quotient, and thus power. When we sing from the lower register to the upper register, the vocal folds transition from shorter and thicker, known as TA dominant, to longer and thinner, CT dominant. Extrinsic muscle engagement, or tension, will impede this process. In order to find a free upper register, the singer must release just enough and not too much as they transition through the first bridge, otherwise known as the primo passaggio. We call this connected release. If they let go too much, they will experience a flip or voice break. If they don't release enough, they will pull too much weight through the primo passaggio, creating strain. Another way of thinking about this is that the TA, or thyroarytenoid muscle, decreases activity as pitch ascends and CT activity increases. When singing correctly in the upper register, the voice should be energized, clear, and powerful, but not forced. We use the closed vowels U and E to encourage a free tone in the upper register. Category-based objectives. All categories need improved strength in the upper register. For all categories, the objective is to create better vocal fold adduction and closed quotient in the upper register, first with hooty imposed larynx sounds and later with adducted onset exercises. Exercises occur above the first bridge. We will continue to use the spiral learning concept. First, we discover release, experiencing a new and better coordination above the first bridge that is free from strain. Then we reinforce with adduction, reinforcing and strengthening the new coordination, increasing vocal fold adduction and closed quotient. Then we develop automatic habits, a new neuromuscular habit created by consistent focused repetition over time. Order of priorities. First, we discover activation with release, singing in the upper register without strain. This might mean the unbalanced pulled lower singer's voice is breathy at first. That's okay. Our first priority is to sing high without straining. Again, we reinforce with adduction. Once the singer has experienced this new coordination, they increase efficiency in vocal fold adduction at the onset of tone for a stronger and clearer sound. As in all things, we want just enough but not too much adduction and compression. If the singer overcompresses, the sound will be squeezed and pressed with excessive air pressure. If the vocal folds do not adduct enough, the result is a breathy, anemic, and weak sound. In the development phase, we're creating greater strength in the upper register while maintaining balance between air pressure and the vocal folds. The larynx. Step 3 exercises are performed with a slightly low laryngeal position. The larynx can assume various positions in the throat, high, neutral, or imposed. Vocalists should avoid laryngeal hiking caused by the engagement of the extrinsic suprahyoid elevator strap muscles. Our first sound, the woo-ee, is sung with a slightly imposed larynx to counteract the common singer's tendency of hiking the larynx by engaging the swallowing muscles when singing high notes. The tongue. When we sing higher pitches, it is vital to be able to drop the jaw while maintaining a clear vowel. When singers have a difficult time singing certain vowels, such as E, on high pitches, the problem is often that the tongue is not independent of jaw movement. When we sing the vowel E on high pitches, the jaw should drop, while the tongue remains high and forward. The E vowel requires the tongue to be at its highest position in the mouth. The tongue independence exercise, moving from A to E, will develop independence between the tongue and the jaw, allowing the tongue to be able to move freely to create any vowel sound needed, independent of jaw position. Here's the shape of the resonators in front, central, and back vowels, and you can see that the E vowel, the tongue is really high and forward. And then the ah vowel, well, the ah in golf, for example, it's back and flat. Here's our upper register modes. Falsetto, very weak. Head, a little stronger. Mix, stronger yet. And chest mix, the strongest. Step 3 exercises. All right, now we are ready for our step 3 exercises where we work on our upper register. In step 3, we are developing the upper register, the area of the voice above the first bridge. To sing these higher pitches, the vocal folds must lengthen and thin due to the cricothyroid or CT muscles tilting the thyroid cartilage downward. The first objective in step 3 is to sing these higher pitches with release or a lack of strain. This might actually mean that in some cases you'll be hearing a breathy sound. Our first objective is to get into that upper register without strain. So if it's breathy, if it's weak, whatever it is at this point, we'll take it. Ultimately, we do want to build more strength by increasing vocal fold adduction and closed quotient and things like that. But again, once we're there without strain, then we can proceed onward. We strengthen and develop the upper register so that it eventually matches the power and tone quality of the lower register. And again, we'll see here that we have a round 1 set of exercises. Those are the gray ones. We are activating step 3, which is the upper register. We call it activation, and it's round 1, discover. We're going to start with an exercise that makes use of 2 closed vowels. Now, closed vowels are vowels made with the tongue close to the roof of the mouth. So these vowels are the ones that provide the most release or the least strain in singing. So our 2 closed vowels that we're using are oo and e. So the first exercise is woo-ee. When we sing this exercise, first of all, you should be facing a mirror. Students should always face the mirror. Watch what's going on with the jaw. Jaw needs to be dropped. And we use the thumb and finger on the corners of the mouth to prevent spreading. We don't want to see a big grin or a smile when we go to the E sound, particularly on a high note. So jaw down, corners in, and neutral mouth. The more stable and neutral the mouth position is by avoiding the wide grimace, the easier it is to maintain consistently correct tone. All right. If the sound is breathy or raspy, there is an imbalance between air pressure and vocal folds. So if it's breathy, that's one problem. If it's raspy, that's another problem. Raspiness is usually excessive air pressure. All right. When we're singing or when we're teaching, we always want to ask ourselves 4 questions. What am I hearing? Is the sound straining, flipping, or breathy? 2, what vocal category or tendency does this indicate? We learned before that we have different categories of the voice depending on what we observe in each of the registers and in the transition between the registers. So is it unbalanced pulled lower? That's the person that strains on the bottom and tries to take their chest voice too high or lower register too high. Is it unbalanced light lower? Okay, both of those are unbalanced registration. The second one means the lower register is too light and breathy, very typical of a choral female singer. Or is it undeveloped? Is it just breathy all over the place? Okay, so and what is the objective to address this? What are we going to be working on? More vocal fold adduction, various things that we can combine to create a better sound. What combination of vowels, consonants, temporary sounds, and scales will work best to meet our objective? All right, so let's go to our woo-ee exercise. The jaw is dropped. We have thumb and finger on either side of the mouth to help us remember not to grin on that E sound, and it sounds like this. All right, we follow that with a kind of a staccato sound with the yee, yee, engaging the core muscles to some degree, keeping that jaw nice and low, making sure that the tongue is in a nice high forward position. So if a person cannot make a clear E with their jaw dropped, that means that they lack independence between the tongue and the jaw. Yee, yee. Okay, and then we do a whole step, half step exercise. And again, these exercises are performed in many keys. So if we, as I said before, if we can't make a clear E, the problem is with the tongue. So we want to kind of work on this tongue independence exercise, where you go back and forth from the vowel ah to the vowel E. So the kind of lowest and most flat vowel, and then to the most high and forward vowel with the tongue. And it sounds like this. Ah, E, ah, E. And the idea is to do that without moving the jaw. So round 2, we're developing a little further here. In the upper register, everyone probably needs more adduction, almost everyone. So everyone will get these exercises, these adduction exercises. The objective is to, again, help the vocal folds come closer to one another. That's called adduction, in order to create a more efficient and clear sound. Here's the first exercise, the triplet adduction exercise. It's just a light little eek, 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 eek. We're not hitting the chords together or banging the chords together really hard. It's just very light. It's called the coup de glotte. All right, once we can do that, we're going to sustain it. All right, building on that skill, we're going to adduct and then come down. Now these exercises start higher and bring the student down to where the bridge area is. And that is for a specific reason. The bridge area is going to be where the student is the most unstable. And so we want to go ahead and bring that upper register coordination, the upper register approach down to the first bridge. Down and up here. Not everybody needs the monkey voice, but here it is. For the person that's really having a hard time, we use this one. Again, we're not hitting or banging the chords together really hard. We're just taking it kind of easy. Just getting that feeling of the nice adduction there. Okay, now we're going to go down with the adduction and then slide up. And remember that we will try to work our way out of and away from these adducted exercises as soon as possible. We don't want to continue these for too long, but it does help the student feel what it's like to sing with a clear vocal tone. Round 3, our advanced development, we are again working on vibrato. Some of these exercises. Okay, so hiss and then ye. And then we speed it up. Okay. And let's do the 5 pulse on the female here. Again, we're sort of determining how many bounces we're going to create with this vibrato. And believe it or not, this actually does turn into a really nicely produced vibrato over time. The student becomes aware of an even pulse, and we will be speeding it up as time goes on, and pretty soon it sort of takes over, and it's just a very nicely produced, natural-sounding vibrato. It really works. All right, here's the 5 pulse vibrato fast. And if we need more adduction, we'll do an adduct with the 5 pulse. Let's do the male on this again. Okay, and then we're going to add a little vibrato here with this slide and a 5 pulse. And again, we are in our advanced development here, so we're going to use 3 and 5 pulses. Using the consonant B as the first consonant. And then we're going to speed this up just a little. Again, being very precise about the number of pulses that we intend to do and that we execute. Step 4, isolators. Further development of lower TA dominant and upper CT dominant registers separately. The objectives of Step 4. Further development of the TA dominant lower register coordination and the CT dominant upper register coordination separately, increasing the student's ability to access lower and upper registers at will. The order of priorities. Adduction, appropriate vocal fold adduction. The vocal folds adduct at the onset of phonation in both the lower and the upper registers. The tone produced in the lower and the upper registers is equally clear. The voiced stop consonant G in the go-go-gi-gi exercises will encourage appropriate vocal fold adduction. Larynx height, neutral to slightly low laryngeal position. The larynx can assume various positions in the throat, high, neutral, or imposed. It is important to avoid laryngeal hiking caused by the engagement of the extrinsic suprahyoid elevator muscles. The go-gi exercise and most of the Step 4 exercises are performed with a slightly imposed larynx to counteract the swallowing muscles that tend to hike the larynx. Register balance. Good singing requires a balanced onset, balance between the registers, balance between the vocal folds and the air pressure, resonance balance, and balance of the body with good alignment. In Step 4, we focus on creating equal strength in the lower and upper registers. Registration, or the experience of contrasting lower and upper registers, is a result of intrinsic muscle activity combined with resonance. The intrinsic muscles, the TA, CT, LCA, IA, the intrinsic muscles are attached to the larynx and are responsible for vocal fold contraction, lengthening, adduction or closing, and abduction or opening. There are 2 muscle groups responsible for the differing experiences of lower register and upper register in singing. The paired thyroarytenoid or TA muscles are attached behind the ridge of the thyroid cartilage in front and attached to the arytenoid cartilages in back, thus the name thyroarytenoid. These muscles contract, making the vocal folds shorter, thicker, and less tense. Though CT and TA work together, the TA are dominant on low notes. That's why it's known as the lower register or chest register. The paired cricothyroid or CT muscles are attached to the thyroid cartilage on top and the cricoid cartilage on the bottom. Thus the name cricothyroid. These muscles contract, bringing the thyroid cartilage downward, stretching and elongating the vocal folds and making them more taut. These muscles are more dominant on high notes, known as the head voice or upper register. 2 other paired muscles that create vocal fold adduction are the LCA, or lateral cricoarytenoid muscles, and the IA, or interarytenoid muscles that draw the folds together to create medial compression. The LCA muscles adduct the folds for about 3/4 of their length, beginning at the front of the larynx, and the IA muscles close the remaining 1/4 at the back end. When you whisper, the IA muscles do not close the back section of the vocal folds. And here are the intrinsic muscles, and you can see the LCA right here on the side. Vocalis and TA are kind of interchangeable in a way. The vocalis is the inner part of the TA. The intrinsic muscles include those responsible for contracting, which is the TA, lengthening, which is the CT, and adducting or closing the vocal folds, and that's TA, LCA, and IA. And those responsible for abduction or opening of the folds, that's the PCA. The vocalis is the medial section of the TA, the part closest to the glottis. Here are the vocal folds on high and low pitch. You can see that they're much longer on a high pitch and thinner than they are on a low pitch. When singing a high note, the singer's vocal folds elongate due to the tilting action of the thyroid cartilage as a result of CT muscle contraction. When we sing lower pitches, the vocal folds shorten due to the contraction of the intrinsic TA or thyroarytenoid muscle. When singers strain for high notes, they are trying to hit the high note with the shorter, thicker TA dominant vocal fold position, as we see in figure B, instead of allowing the folds to lengthen and thin, as in A. Here's our thyroid cartilage tilt. The contraction of the cricothyroid muscle tilts the thyroid cartilage forward and down, stretching and lengthening the vocal folds attached at the front of the larynx to the thyroid cartilage. Registration and TA contraction. TA muscle contraction to a large extent determines registration. In the lower register or speaking voice, that's figure C, the TA pushes the folds toward one another. The vibrational wave begins at the bottom of the vocal fold and travels upward. In the upper register mix, the TA is less contracted and the vibrational wave begins higher on the vocal fold. Therefore, there is less vibrating vocal mass. On the highest pitches, the TA muscle is not contracted and the ligament is the tension-bearing element of the fold. Yodeling is an abrupt shift from figure C to figure A. Further development of TA dominant and CT dominant phonations separately. For step 4, our objective is the further development of TA dominant lower register and CT dominant upper register separately before mixing the registers, which we will do in step 5. When we are teaching these or singing these exercises, we want to make sure that the thumb and finger are on the corners of the mouth at all times to prevent spreading. We want to remember to expand the midsection, front, sides, and back when we breathe, and to maintain outward firmness against the breathing belt. This is known as the 360-degree singer's breath. We can use the cry and staccato with these exercises for increased vocal fold adduction. We want to make sure that the larynx is low and relaxed on both the low and the high pitches. The sound should be clear and strong on both low and high pitches. The constriction or middle hump of the tongue should be high against the top molars on the E sounds. If the sound is muffled or the E is not correct, have the student go back to the A-E tongue exercise, gradually increasing the speed. The tip of the tongue rests on the lower front teeth for sustained pitches. Don't let the tongue tighten and pull backward down the throat on those sustained pitches. You want to make sure that you're looking in the mirror to make sure that there's no space between the tip of the tongue and the lower teeth. I might just want to take a moment here to explain the setup. We have 4 columns here. The first column is the male exercises. Next to that is the male no vocal exercises, and that's where you can have the option of just playing the track and then choosing your own syllable here. Highly recommend that you use the highlighted syllables first because those create the greatest effectiveness in the voice. But once the student is phonating correctly using these syllables, you're going to want to move on to these other alternate syllables. And so that's why we have the no vocal track. And then next to that, we have the female demo track with the vocal, and then the female no vocal track. Obviously, these are in different keys, male and female. So this one requires a little bit of energy and punch to make it work. It sounds like this. Go, go, gee, gee, go. So that's a gee on the top. And then we're going to reinforce the top note. All right, that's our round 1. round 2, where we're developing these new coordinations that we've just experienced. Here's a triad slide. And another whole step, half step exercise. And by the way, when you're working on various steps, or when we're designing a lesson plan, we don't want to spend the whole lesson on one step. We would like to hit as many steps as possible within one lesson, given the rate of the student's development. An ideal lesson might actually sort of incorporate an exercise from each of the steps. The more advanced the student becomes, the less you'll need steps 1 through 4. Because once they've established the lower and the upper register and they're real secure with what that coordination feels like, quite often I'll start a student on step 5, which is our mixing exercises. But it takes a few months to get them to that point, though. You don't want to just right off the bat give somebody who's never sung before a long scale, because you're defeating your purpose there. If there's nothing to mix, you're not mixing. In other words, a lot of times they don't have a lower register, or the lower register is not present enough. And so that's why step 4 is so important. You definitely want to isolate those registers before you start to mix them. Isolate and strengthen them in many cases. Again, using go and gi. Here's an isolator bounce exercise. And by the way, the vocalist here is Lewis Ray, one of my associate teachers here at Sing Like a Star. All right, here's the skipping exercise. And the advanced isolator. This one's pretty hard. The idea here is to, ensure that both of the notes are equally strong. And the closer these intervals come to one another, the harder that is to do. So when you're singing a quite large interval, low register, upper register, it's a little easier to do than when you're just hanging out right on the bridge. So here's what this one sounds like. This is really advanced. You would not give this to somebody until they've spent quite a bit of time in rounds 1 and 2. A lot of times teachers ask how they should divide lessons. We really do want to try to get enough of a vocal workout in to ensure that there's vocal development going on. We're not all about, just warming up and then let's sing the song a bunch of times and don't get any better or don't see any changes. So at least half the lesson should be exercises. I tend to do even more than that in the beginning months, just because we want to make sure that there is some vocal development going on. But you really have to gauge the student and their attention span. If you're working with really young students, they may not be able to stay focused for that amount of time. But just keep in mind that the idea here is vocal development, not warming up. They're two completely different things. Warming up is what you do before a performance, and a warm-up is a real easy, light, let's just get things moving and lubricated kind of approach. A vocal workout, you want to think like an athlete. We're doing a workout. We're trying to improve strength and coordination and things like that. So it requires energy, and focused attention. That's the other thing. If you don't see changes, it's because you're not practicing with focused attention. You're just kind of warming up. You need to be really aware of what your goal and objective is, and how close are you coming to that goal or objective every time you perform the exercise. Why we have voice breaks. Singers must allow the handover or transfer of TA dominant to CT dominant phonation. Shorter, thicker vocal folds to longer, thinner vocal folds. Vocal fold vibration begins higher on the folds, so there's less vibrating mass. Formant activity or resonance. F1 hands over to F2 dominance. When the frequency of the second harmonic, the octave above the pitch, is higher than the frequency of the first formant of the vowel, the voice naturally wants to turn over or change registers. When the second harmonic, the octave above the pitch, approaches the peak of the first formant, we get the F1H2 coupling, which begins to sound like yelling if taken too high. F1 must hand over to F2. If the vowels are too open, this won't happen. Open vowels must be modified in the primo passaggio to avoid the F1H2 coupling, the yell, in the notes beginning at the primo passaggio, the first bridge, and extending beyond that. Perception of resonance or sympathetic vibration. Chest voice, vibrations felt in the chest cavity, to head voice, no more vibrations in the chest cavity. Chest voice feels natural because TA dominant phonation is our speaking voice. CT dominant phonation is less familiar and feels less powerful. However, perception is not reality. It is based on our experience of sympathetic vibration. And because of a reluctance on the part of the singer to allow the connected release, because they experience the upper register mix as being not enough. Step 5, register connection with temporary sounds. Objectives of Step 5. The student will begin to connect and balance the lower and upper registers and to transition smoothly through the first bridge or primo passaggio using temporary sounds. In this step, for the first time, the student begins to mix. In Step 5, also for the first time, exercises differ based on the student's vocal category. For the undeveloped and unbalanced light lower category singers, we continue to encourage better vocal fold adduction in both the lower and upper registers. Generally, the student will need to learn to bridge higher to create a more contemporary sound. Unbalanced pulled lower singers will need more release or less tension in the lower register, particularly in the pitches leading up to the first bridge or primo passaggio, and increased vocal fold adduction in the upper register. What's different about Step 5? In Step 5, for the first time, we differentiate the order of exercises, keys, vowel and consonant combinations used according to the student's vocal category in order to accomplish specific results. For the unbalanced pulled lower singers, we start the exercises in higher keys to make sure they are above the first bridge on the highest notes of the exercise. We begin with top-down exercises that create a released condition that is then blended downward. The unbalanced pulled lower singer will benefit in the beginning from exercises that create more release, such as the semi-occluded vocal exercises, lip bubble tongue trill, closed vowels that encourage a headier vocal production, aspirate consonants that allow more airflow, and glide consonants that decrease strain. Imposed larynx sounds, which we call dumb or hooty, will encourage a low larynx, counteracting the tendency to engage the swallowing muscles to hike the larynx, a reflex that is endemic to pulled chest. Here are the transitions of the voice. In the area from C4 to C5, we call that the overlap octave. That's where a lot of things can go wrong and usually do. All right, unbalanced pulled lower category. Order of priorities for the unbalanced pulled lower category. Exercises must first encourage release from strain as the singer enters the primo passaggio. Then teachers need to develop better vocal fold adduction in the upper register where this type of singer is usually very weak. In the discovery phase, we're discovering release, releasing excess tension in the lower register and toward the first bridge, allowing the folds to function with less mass as pitch ascends, transitioning through the first bridge with just enough and not too much vocal fold compression. We encourage this first with top-down exercises set in higher keys. The initial pitch must be above the primo passaggio to discourage pulling chest too high. The reinforce. New condition is reinforced with hooty sounds and voice stop consonants such as G, B, and D for better vocal fold adduction, starting with top down and then bottom up. In the development phase, we use adducted onset and pharyngeal exercises, first top down, then bottom up. The singer develops a smooth transition through the primo passaggio and balanced registration with temporary sounds initially. Ultimately, the singer moves to neutral larynx sound and speech level phonation. The temporary sounds are, for release, the semi-occluded vocal tract, SOVT, lip bubble, tongue trill, the dizzy or V. Use these exercises for the pulled lower singers, but not for undeveloped or light lower singers. Can you guess why? The pulled lower singers need more release. The undeveloped and light lower singers need more vocal fold adduction. For vocal fold adduction, use the pharyngeal sounds, twang, adducted onset, the witchy, bratty, the voce di strega, the French nasals, voice stop consonants, and the cry. To counteract a hiked larynx, use the imposed larynx or dumb, hooty, dopey sounds. To correct overcompression or undercompression, friendly compression sounds such as the creak, vocal fry, the edgy These sounds increase vocal fold adduction for breathy singers, but decrease overcompression in pulled lower singers. The creak tends to bring both extremes back to a more moderate compression. After step 5, we will be eliminating these temporary sounds, but you can always return to them to establish vocal coordination and balance whenever needed. And here's a chart of the temporary sounds. To find release, we use the aspirate onset, h, sh, closed vowels like hooty, wee, and you, and a body position of bending forward or bending the knees. Adduction, we use the adducted onset, which we find with any vowel whenever we say ah, ow, ow, ee. You're adducting. Okay, the French nasals will help, the pharyngeal sounds, and nay, meow, meow, voce di strega, voice stop consonants, the g, b, d, j, and the cry. All right. For the low larynx, we think of the hooty, dopey, dumb sounds covering round and down, deeper and darker. We use backgrounded vowels such as oo, o, and We use centered vowels with an imposed larynx such as the in book and the in burn. Voice to stop consonants with an imposed larynx, bwub, bwub, bwub. And for balance, we use our semi-occluded sounds, centered vowels with a neutral larynx, and glide consonants such as W, Y, liquid consonants, the NG, the ng, and the m, consonants that function as semi-occluded such as V, Z, and J, and friendly compression sounds such as the creak or vocal fry. For register connection for pulled lower singers, we choose top-down exercises first, followed by bottom-up exercises, adding creak exercises to decrease or increase compression as needed. When the singer is holding on to too much weight and straining for higher pitches, it is important to decrease extrinsic muscle engagement and excessive air pressure, and to allow the vocal folds to thin and elongate to create less vibrational mass. The most effective way of effectively reducing extrinsic muscle engagement is to use the semi-occluded sounds, such as the lip roll or tongue trill. Singing on closed vowels, vowels that are made with the tongue higher in the mouth, such as E and oo, will create a heavier vocal production. The creak or vocal fry is a way to create a moderate degree of vocal compression. It increases compression and adduction for breathy singers, but decreases compression and adduction for singers who strain. The pharyngeal, bratty, voce di strega, or witchy voice sounds will lengthen and thin the vocal folds, making register connection easier. The imposed larynx sounds encourage the laryngeal tilt, that creates the stretch in the vocal folds, and that makes it easier to accomplish, allowing an easier transition from low to high. Aspirate onsets are very helpful to pull lower singers. Allowing more breathiness in the lower register will decrease the tendency to overcompress, particularly as they approach the first bridge. Exercises for pulled lower singers. Our objective is register connection with temporary sounds. First, we start with the top down using the glide consonant W and closed vowel E. We use an imposed larynx, and we discover release. Then we strengthen that connection with top down voice stop consonants using G with the closed vowel E and an imposed larynx. Then we find a released register connection from the bottom up with the glide consonant W and a closed vowel E, making sure the upper register is mixed, strengthening the register connection from the bottom up with an adducted onset E, a smooth transition and balanced registration with bottom up exercises, first pharyngeal and then imposed, and then the magic of M. We move away from the hard onset to gentler M and N and using the sound. Exercises are performed at speech level. All right, this is step 5 exercises for the unbalanced pulled lower category. In step 5, we begin to mix and develop balanced registration using extreme or temporary sounds. Unbalanced pulled lower singers first discover release when connecting the registers by connecting from the top down. Exercises are started in a key that ensures that the first note is above the primo passaggio or first bridge, and then we're blending the registers downward from the upper register to the lower register. These initial exercises can also be performed on a semi-occluded vocal tract sound for added release. In step 5, for the first time, the paths diverge based on the singer's vocal category. The unbalanced pulled lower singer's objectives are going to be different from the breathy, undeveloped, and unbalanced light lower singers. The keys are going to be different. The order of exercises is going to be different because the objectives are different. The unbalanced pulled lower singer will perform exercises from the top down initially in order to find release. The undeveloped and light lower singers will start exercises in lower keys and begin the exercises in the lower register. Let's start with our top down release exercises. Round 1, we're going to use a hooty wee. And then we connect with the slide top down. With all slide exercises, be sure to match the speed of the demo. Slides really help us to blend the registers and smooth out the break. And our 5-tone slide on a wee. In this section, we continue on with the closed vowels and hooty sound, but we use voiced stop consonants. Here's a hooty top down separated on a gee. And then connecting downward with a slide. Then we'll make that even stronger with a hooty repeater top down. Followed by a hooty repeater slide down. times down. And then 3 times down with sustain. Notice how we're building skills sequentially. Now our 5-tone slide down on the hootie gi. The voice stop consonants like G and B, combined with the imposed larynx sounds, assist with vocal fold approximation while maintaining release or lack of strain. The top-down approach ensures that the singer will not be able to pull chest. Now we'll move to exercises that begin in the lower register. In this section, we'll be using the glide consonant W and the closed vowel E for a we. We'll begin in the lower register, moving upward. We. And we'll do a repeater. Followed by a repeater sustain. And then a long scale, working through the primo passaggio. And the 1-5-3-8-5 exercise. Moving to round 2, we're going to be increasing vocal fold adduction and compression with the adducted pharyngeal top-down exercises on E. And then we'll connect that with a slide. Followed by the repeater. And the repeater slide. In round 2, we continue to develop vocal fold adduction in the upper register, the area where most pulled lower singers are weaker. With the staccato, legato, vibrato exercise, top down on E. All of the preceding exercises will eventually be done on ow, or ah with the tongue out. All right, moving on to our 3 times down pharyngeal exercises performed on nay. And pharyngeal with sustain. At this point in our round 2 exercises, we're going to begin adduction from the bottom up. Making sure that the singer is mixing in the upper register. Now let's do the octave repeater to reinforce that. And the repeater sustain. The legato staccato octave. And the legato staccato octave repeater. Legato staccato octave repeater sustain. And the adducted onset 1.5 on E. And the legato staccato 1.5. Only do as many of these exercises as are needed to achieve your objective of a smooth transition through the passaggio and balanced registration. Here's the staccato legato 15385. And the legato staccato 15385. In round 3, develop, we're going to begin with the pharyngeal or high larynx exercises, and then return to the imposed or low larynx exercises to get the larynx back down. In the next round, we'll finish off by doing speech level or neutral larynx sounds. We'll start with the pharyngeal neigh on an octave arpeggio. And then we'll repeat that to reinforce the upper register. And sustain. Now we'll work through the passaggio with a 1.5 long scale. The neigh, while being pharyngeal, has a less harsh onset than the preceding section, which used the adducted onset. So we're always trying to decrease the need for that coup de glotte onset as soon as possible. Now let's go around the bridge 3 times. And for balance and flexibility, 15385 on a pharyngeal neigh. And then the same series will be repeated with a low larynx. Not necessarily all in the same session, however. Back to the octave arpeggio, low larynx, gug. And a repeater. Repeater with sustain. And the long scale. Working through the bridge 3 times. And the 1, 5, 3, 8, 5. At this point, we'd like to discontinue the voice stop consonants in favor of M's and creaky sounds that will help us find a more moderate onset, like this. This is called the creaky question. This is how you find it. So when you're using the creak, it's a great way to find just enough and not too much vocal fold compression. This can help encourage a coordinated transfer from TA dominant vocal fold activity to CT dominant vocal fold activity. In other words, it creates a smooth, unbroken vocal line from the lowest notes to the highest notes of your range. In order to creak or fry successfully, you must be relaxed and you must be singing at a moderate volume. Singing too loudly or pushing air will cause coughing or tickling of the throat. You can try these exercises first with some creak and then go back and do them clean. And then just an slide. And a 2-octave siren. Great way to find balance between registers, lower and upper, and a great way to connect the registers. And the double long scale. And our 2-octave sirens which are great for register blending. All right, so this is to mum, double long scale. Again, the helps us find a really nice balance. To mum, double 1 5 3 8 5. Octave arpeggio, opening up to an In round 3, we work towards speech level sounds with a neutral larynx. So here's a mum octave arpeggio. And octave repeater. And again, adding skills sequentially, we're going to go to a repeater with sustain. All right, the twang. Pharyngeal sounds add brilliance to the voice by creating a narrowing of the epiglottic funnel, creating a quality known as twang. This occurs when the arytenoid cartilages come closer to the lower part of the epiglottis. When the larynx rises for these sounds, the pharynx becomes smaller. This smaller resonating chamber raises F1, the first formant. The ah vowel, sung with the voce di strega or witchy quality, is a great way to learn twang or pharyngeal sounds. When you add a little twang to your sound, your voice appears to be louder without any extra effort. And here's a chart showing the narrowing of the epilarynx for the pharyngeal twang sounds. In general, a note becomes more intense by either increasing lung pressure, increasing vibration at the bottom of the vocal fold, or narrowing the epilarynx, the acoustic tube immediately above the vocal folds. This creates the pharyngeal or twang sound in singing, the edgy, bright, forward, brassy timbre associated with much of today's musical theater, pop, R&B, and gospel singing. Narrowing the epilarynx area facilitates phonation by decreasing phonation threshold pressure through impedance matching of the glottal source and vocal tract. The imposed larynx, F1, the first formant, is responsible for darkness and depth of tone. The imposed larynx or dopey sounds are created when the lowered larynx extends the tube of the pharyngeal resonator, increasing the resonating space and lowering F1, the first formant. The O vowel and the vowel sung with the imposed larynx can counteract unintended laryngeal hiking by activating the extrinsic depressor muscles. Here are the extrinsic muscles. The suprahyoid elevator muscles are the ones that raise the larynx whenever we swallow. That's these four. And then the infrahyoid depressor muscles press the larynx down. The elevator muscles lift the larynx when we swallow. They're also known as the swallowing muscles. Singers often incorrectly engage these extrinsic swallowing muscles and hike the larynx to reach high notes. The depressor muscles lower the larynx. We use imposed larynx sounds temporarily to counteract the singer's tendency to hike the larynx. To avoid voice breaks, the larynx should remain stable and relaxed as pitch ascends. The magic of muh. Say the word muh. This creates a relaxed throat space and neutral laryngeal position with moderate vocal fold compression. After all the high and imposed larynx exercises we've worked through so far, to counteract extrinsic muscular interference, our goal now is to sing with a relaxed and neutral larynx and a balanced onset. The voice stop consonants and adducted onsets used previously to encourage vocal fold adduction are replaced with the M sound, which encourages the balanced onset. When singing songs, certain styles may require a slightly higher laryngeal position, and that's fine as long as this is a style choice and not your only option.